No one expected me to choose you. I need you to sit with that sentence for a second, because it's not just a title. It's the truest thing I've felt in a long time. And today it's finally time I tell you why. And what it's done to everyone around me. And what it's still doing to me right now. As I try to find the words to explain something my heart already understood long before my mind caught up. People had ideas about who I'd end up choosing. They had pictures in their heads, expectations built from nothing but assumption, opinions about the kind of woman who'd fit into my life. And then you showed up, and none of it matched what they expected. And honestly, none of it matched what I expected either. But somewhere between the moment I met you and the moment I realized I couldn't stop thinking about you, every expectation I ever had quietly dissolved, replaced by something so much more real than any picture I'd built in my head before you existed in it. I think that's the part people don't understand about real love. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for approval. It doesn't care about the version of a future everyone else imagined for you. It just arrives, quietly and completely, and rearranges everything you thought you knew about what you wanted. Until the only thing that makes sense anymore is the person standing in front of you, the one nobody saw coming, the one who somehow became impossible to imagine a future without. I remember the moment it hit me, that this wasn't some passing feeling, that this wasn't infatuation dressed up as something bigger. It was quiet, almost embarrassingly ordinary, the kind of moment nobody would notice unless they were paying close attention. You were just being yourself, unaware that you were doing anything special at all. And something about the way you existed in that moment settled deep into my chest and refused to leave. That's when I knew. Not with fireworks, not with some dramatic realization, just a quiet certainty that felt more permanent than anything I'd ever felt before. I know people are going to have questions when they find out. I know they're going to wonder why you, out of everyone, why someone they didn't expect, why a choice that doesn't fit the mold they imagined for me. And I want to tell you now, before anyone else says a single word about it, that I don't need their understanding to know what I feel is real. I don't need anyone's approval to recognize what my heart has already decided, because real love isn't about fitting into someone else's expectations. It's about finding the one person who feels like truth, even when nobody else can see it yet. I think about the reasons why I chose you, and none of them make sense on paper the way people expect them to. It's not about a checklist. It's not about status or image, or the things people usually measure worth by. It's about the way you make ordinary moments feel meaningful. It's about the way your presence brings a kind of peace I didn't know I was missing until I felt it. It's about the way you see the world with a softness that hasn't been beaten out of you yet, despite everything life has probably put you through. And I want to protect that softness for as long as I possibly can. There's something incredibly brave about choosing someone the world doesn't expect you to choose. It means trusting your own heart over everyone else's opinions. It means believing in what you feel, even when you can't fully explain it to people who are looking at the situation from the outside. And I'm not scared of that. I'm not scared of people questioning this. I'm only scared of what it would feel like to let you go simply because choosing you wasn't the easy, expected, convenient choice. I want you to know something important. Being unexpected doesn't mean being wrong. Sometimes the most unexpected choices end up being the most right ones, because they're not built on assumptions or image. They're built on something deeper, something that doesn't need anyone else's validation to feel true. And what I feel for you is exactly that. Deep, true, undeniable, even to the people who didn't see it coming. I think about the moment everyone will finally know. The moment this isn't just something quiet between us anymore. The moment the world sees what I already see so clearly. I imagine the surprise on some faces, the questions, the curiosity, and honestly, I imagine feeling proud, standing beside you, letting everyone see exactly why you were the one who mattered enough to change everything I thought I knew about love. Because that's exactly what you did. You changed it. Before you, love felt like something abstract, something I understood in theory, but hadn't fully experienced in a way that felt undeniable. I had ideas about what I wanted, ideas shaped by what I saw around me, ideas that felt safe because they were familiar. But familiar isn't always right, and safe isn't always real. And somewhere along the way I realized that what I actually needed wasn't a version of love that made sense to everyone else. I needed something that made sense to my own heart, even if it surprised everyone watching from the outside. I want to tell you about the quiet moments that convinced me, the small details that most people wouldn't even notice, but that meant everything to me. The way you speak about the people you love, with so much loyalty and warmth, told me everything I needed to know about the kind of loyalty you'd offer someone lucky enough to be loved by you. The way you handle hard days without losing your compassion for other people told me you have a strength that doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. The way your eyes hold both softness and depth at the same time told me you're someone who feels everything fully. And I didn't want to be a person who ever took that depth for granted. I think about the life I imagine building with you, one that doesn't need anyone else's approval to feel complete. A life full of small, meaningful moments rather than grand, performative ones. A life where love isn't measured by how it looks to other people, but by how safe, how understood, how deeply seen we both feel within it. I don't need people to understand why I chose you. I only need you to understand why I chose you, and to feel it so clearly that no outside opinion could ever make you doubt it. There's a specific kind of clarity that comes from choosing someone despite everyone else's expectations. A clarity that strips away all the noise and leaves only the truth of what you actually feel. And the truth is, when I imagine my future, when I imagine the person standing beside me, through everything life is going to bring, both the good and the difficult, it's you. Not a version of you shaped by anyone else's approval, but exactly who you are, unfiltered, real, and entirely yourself. I know some people are going to say, I could have chosen someone who fit the picture better. Someone who matched the expectations everyone had already built. But I don't want someone who fits a picture. I want someone who fits my heart. And that's a completely different thing. Pictures are shallow. Hearts are honest. And my heart has never been more honest about anything than it is about you. I think about how brave it feels to say all of this out loud, knowing it might surprise people, knowing it might not make sense to everyone watching, but choosing to say it anyway because some truths matter more than the comfort of staying quiet. I'd rather be honest and surprising than dishonest and predictable. I'd rather choose the person who actually makes my heart feel something real than the person who simply looks right on paper to everyone else. I want you to know that the moment everyone finds out, I'm not going to shrink the way I feel about you just to make it more palatable for people who didn't expect this. I'm going to stand beside you with pride, because you deserve someone who's not embarrassed to choose you loudly, someone who doesn't treat this like a secret to manage, but like a truth to celebrate. You deserve someone who's excited for the world to know, not because it needs their approval, but because real love doesn't hide the person it's proud to have found. I think about the strength it takes to trust something the world doesn't fully understand yet. I think about how easy it would be to choose the expected path, the predictable one, the one that wouldn't raise questions or surprise anyone. But easy isn't the same as right, and predictable isn't the same as meaningful. I don't want an easy love story. I want a real one, even if it's unexpected, even if it surprises people, even if it takes some explaining before everyone fully understands. There's a certain kind of peace that comes from finally choosing what feels true instead of what looks convenient. And that's exactly what choosing you feels like. It feels like finally listening to my own heart instead of everyone else's expectations. It feels like finally choosing depth over image, feeling over appearance, truth over convenience. I keep thinking about how this moment feels like the beginning of something the world hasn't fully seen yet. Something that's going to unfold slowly, honestly, and completely on its own terms rather than anyone else's timeline. I don't need to rush the reveal. I don't need to prove anything to anyone before I'm ready. I just need you to know, clearly and without any doubt, that despite what anyone expected, despite the surprise this might cause, you are exactly who my heart chose, fully and without hesitation. I still have so much more to say about what this means to me, about the way choosing you has quietly rewritten everything I thought I understood about love, about the future I see forming the more I let myself imagine it fully. But I want to leave this here for now. Let it settle. Let you feel the weight of a choice that wasn't expected, but somehow feels more right than anything predictable ever could. I was someone who believed in love in theory, but had grown quietly cautious about it in practice. I had watched people around me build relationships that looked good from the outside, but felt hollow up close. I had experienced my own share of disappointments, moments where I gave pieces of my heart to people who didn't handle them with the care they deserved. And somewhere along the way, without even fully realizing it, I built a quiet kind of guard around myself, not cold, not closed off completely, but careful, cautious, unwilling to hand my heart over without real certainty. And then you came into my life in a way that didn't ask for that certainty up front. You didn't demand my guard come down. You simply existed, honestly and openly, and little by little, my guard lowered itself without me even deciding to let it. That's the part that still amazes me when I think about it. I didn't choose to fall for you the way you choose to make a decision. It happened the way sunrise happens, slowly, quietly, until suddenly the whole sky is different, and you realize the change happened while you weren't even paying attention to it happening. I think about the specific things that make you unexpected, and I want to name some of them, because I don't think you fully know how rare they are. You have this way of caring for people without expecting anything back. And that kind of selflessness is becoming harder and harder to find in a world that's taught people to keep score. You have this way of staying soft despite everything that could have hardened you. And that softness, that refusal to let the world turn you bitter, is one of the most beautiful things about you. You have this honesty in the way you express your feelings, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it would be easier to stay quiet. And that honesty makes me trust you in a way I don't trust easily. I keep thinking about how unexpected choices often turn out to be the most meaningful ones, precisely because they're not built on assumption. When something fits the expected mold perfectly, there's a chance it was chosen out of habit, out of convenience, out of simply following the path everyone assumed was right. But when something doesn't fit the mold and still feels undeniably right, that's when you know it's real. 'Cause it survived being questioned, it survived not making immediate sense to everyone else, and it still stood strong despite that. I want to talk about what it feels like imagining our story being told one day, years from now, to people who ask how we found each other. I imagine saying nobody expected it, not even me, not fully, until suddenly I couldn't imagine anything else. I imagine explaining that love doesn't always look like what people picture in their heads. That sometimes it looks like a slow, quiet realization instead of a dramatic, obvious moment. I imagine telling people that the best decision I ever made was trusting what I felt instead of what everyone else expected me to feel. There's a strength in choosing authenticity over approval, and I think that's ultimately what this comes down to. Choosing you means choosing authenticity, choosing what's real over what's expected, choosing depth over surface-level approval from people who don't actually have to live inside this feeling the way I do. And I'd choose that authenticity every single time, even knowing it surprises people, even knowing it doesn't fit whatever picture existed in anyone's mind before you. I think about the quiet strength it must have taken for you to keep believing in love, despite whatever you've experienced before this moment. I think about how easy it would have been for you to become guarded, distant, unwilling to trust something real when it finally showed up. But instead, you stayed open, you stayed soft, you stayed willing to believe that maybe, just maybe, something real was still possible for you. And I don't take that lightly. I know what it means when someone chooses to stay open, despite everything that could have convinced them to close off completely. I want to be someone worthy of that openness. I want to be someone who protects it instead of taking advantage of it. Someone who nurtures it instead of letting it wither from neglect. Because your softness, your willingness to still believe in something real, is not something to be treated carelessly. It's something rare, something precious, something I intend to handle with the same care I'd give to anything irreplaceable in my life. I think about the moments ahead of us, the moments where the world starts to see what I already see, And I imagine how it's going to feel watching people slowly understand why this choice, this unexpected choice, makes so much sense once they actually get to know you the way I've gotten to know you. I imagine them realizing that the qualities that matter most, loyalty, honesty, warmth, resilience, softness paired with strength, were things they simply couldn't see from the outside looking in. Because that's the thing about real love. It's not always obvious from the outside. Sometimes the people who understand a relationship least are the people standing furthest from it, watching from a distance, judging based on assumptions instead of the actual depth of connection happening up close. And I'm not interested in explaining myself to distant opinions. I'm only interested in building something real with the person standing right in front of me, the one who actually matters in this story. I keep thinking about what it means to be chosen unexpectedly, and I hope it feels like something powerful to you too, not just something surprising to everyone else. I hope it feels like being seen fully, like being valued for exactly who you are, instead of who you're expected to be. I hope it feels like finally being chosen not because you fit into someone else's plan, but because your own individual heart, your own individual soul, was simply undeniable once someone paid close enough attention to notice it. I think about the future conversations we might have about this moment, about how we'll probably laugh, about how unexpected it all seemed at first, about how quickly that unexpected feeling turned into something that felt more certain than anything either of us had felt before. I imagine us looking back and realizing that the best things in life rarely come exactly as expected. They come quietly, unpredictably, and then suddenly they become impossible to imagine life without. There's a specific kind of joy that comes from proving people wrong, not out of spite, but simply by living out something so genuinely happy that it silences any doubt anyone else had. I imagine that happening here too. I imagine anyone who doubted this choice slowly watching it unfold and realizing this actually makes sense, this actually works, this actually feels right in a way predictable choices never could have. I want you to know that I'm not scared of the unexpectedness of this. I'm not scared of surprising people. I'm only scared of a version of life where I let go of something real simply because it didn't match what everyone else assumed I'd choose. I refuse to live that way. I refuse to prioritize other people's expectations over my own heart's certainty, especially when that certainty involves someone as meaningful as you've become to me. I think about how much courage it takes to fully commit to something unexpected, to stand by it even before everyone else understands it, to trust it even when it hasn't been fully explained to the people watching from outside. But I have that courage because what I feel for you isn't fragile enough to be shaken by outside opinions. It's steady, it's certain, it's mine, ours, something that doesn't need anyone else's permission to be real. There's still more I want to say, more layers to this feeling I haven't fully unpacked yet, more reasons why choosing you feels like the most natural, most obvious choice, despite how unexpected it seemed to everyone else. But I want to let this settle first. Let you feel the weight of being chosen this deliberately, this consciously, despite everything that could have made a different choice easier. I think it's important you know that even certainty comes with moments of questioning, not because the feeling itself is uncertain, but because caring this deeply about something makes you want to protect it fiercely, and sometimes that protectiveness shows up as fear. I've had moments where I wondered if I was moving too fast, feeling too much too soon, saying things out loud before enough time had passed to earn the right to say them. But every time that doubt creeps in, I come back to the same realization. Real feelings don't follow a timeline. They arrive when they arrive, and trying to force them into a slower, more socially acceptable pace doesn't make them any less true. I think about how many people spend their whole lives waiting for the right time to feel something fully, waiting until it's convenient, waiting until it matches some imaginary schedule society decided love should follow. And I don't want to be one of those people. I don't want to hold back something real just because it arrived earlier than expected, or looked different than expected, or challenged assumptions I didn't even know I had until you walked into my life and quietly dismantled them. I want to tell you about the way your name feels different in my mind now than it used to. It used to just be a name, a simple identifier, nothing particularly significant attached to it. But now, every time I think of it, it comes with a feeling, warmth, softness, a kind of quiet excitement that settles in my chest before I even fully process why. Names aren't supposed to carry weight like that, unless the person behind them means something real. And yours has become one of the most meaningful things I carry with me throughout an ordinary day. I think about the small, quiet promises I've already started making to myself about how I want to treat you moving forward. I promise to never make you feel like an option among many, because you deserve to feel like a priority, clearly and consistently. I promise to never let outside noise change how I show up for you, because real commitment doesn't bend just because other people have opinions about it. I promise to communicate honestly, even when honesty feels uncomfortable, because I'd rather give you uncomfortable truth than comfortable dishonesty. I keep thinking about the kind of energy I want to bring into whatever we're building. I don't want to bring anxiety into this, constantly questioning whether you feel the same way, constantly needing reassurance out of insecurity rather than genuine communication. I want to bring calm, steady confidence, not arrogance, but a quiet trust in what we're building together. A trust that doesn't need constant proof to remain strong. I think about the parts of my life I want to share with you slowly, piece by piece, not all at once, but gradually. The way real intimacy builds over time, rather than being rushed for the sake of immediate closeness. I want to tell you about my fears in quiet moments, not as a performance of vulnerability, but as genuine trust that you'll hold those fears carefully, instead of using them against me later. I want to tell you about my hopes, the ones I don't say out loud to just anyone. The ones that feel too fragile to share with someone who hasn't earned the right to hear them yet. I think you've earned that right, slowly, through the way you've shown up, through the way your presence feels safe rather than uncertain, through the way something in me relaxes whenever I think about you, instead of tensing up the way it usually does around uncertainty. I want to talk about the future in a way that isn't rushed, but is still honest about what I hope for. I imagine holidays spent together, not extravagant ones, just meaningful ones, filled with small traditions we build slowly over the years. I imagine quiet Sunday mornings, where neither of us has anywhere urgent to be, where we simply exist together, comfortable in the silence, comfortable in each other's presence, without needing constant conversation to feel connected. I imagine difficult seasons too, because life isn't only made of easy moments, and I want you to know I'm not just imagining the good parts. I imagine standing beside you through loss, through stress, through the moments life tests both of us individually and together. I imagine being the calm in your storm instead of adding to the chaos, being someone who helps carry weight instead of someone who adds more of it. I think about how love isn't really proven in the easy moments. Anyone can show up when things are simple, when everything feels light and effortless. Real love proves itself in the harder moments, the ones that require patience, the ones that test whether someone's commitment was built on convenience or built on something deeper, something unwilling to walk away just because things got complicated. I want to be that kind of partner for you, not someone who only shows up for the easy seasons, but someone who stays rooted through the difficult ones too. Someone who chooses you again and again, not because it's always effortless, but because choosing you feels more important than the temporary discomfort of a hard season. I keep thinking about trust, because I think trust is really the foundation everything else is built on. Without trust, passion fades into anxiety. Without trust, closeness turns into suspicion. Without trust, even the deepest feelings eventually crumble under the weight of doubt. And I want to build trust with you slowly, intentionally, through consistent actions rather than empty promises, through showing up in the small moments rather than only the big ones, through proving again and again that what I say matches what I do. I think about how healing it must feel to finally experience a love that doesn't require you to brace yourself constantly, a love that doesn't keep you guessing, A love that feels steady enough to finally exhale into, instead of walking on eggshells within. I want to give you that. I want you to feel like you can finally stop bracing, finally stop protecting yourself from disappointment, finally allow yourself to fully receive love without waiting for the other shoe to drop. There's something incredibly healing about being loved by someone who doesn't require you to perform, who doesn't require you to hide the parts of yourself you're still working through, who simply accepts you exactly as you are, while still encouraging you to grow into who you're becoming. I want to be that kind of presence in your life. Someone who sees your growth without demanding it. Someone who accepts your current self without expecting perfection. I think about the quiet gratitude I feel just knowing you exist, even before fully understanding everything that's ahead of us. There's something powerful about being grateful for someone before you even fully know the entirety of their story. Grateful simply because their existence has already added something meaningful to your life, something that wasn't there before, something you now can't imagine being without. I want you to know that even in moments where I'm not saying anything, even in silence, my feelings for you don't quiet down. They exist steadily, quietly, in the background of everything I do, in the way I think about you during ordinary tasks, in the way certain songs suddenly remind me of a feeling I associate with you, in the way certain quiet evenings feel incomplete, without imagining what it would be like if you were there sharing them with me. I think about how much I want to protect this feeling, not from you, but from anything that could dim it, from cynicism, from outside doubt, from the rush of moving too fast just because excitement makes patience feel difficult. I want to protect the slow, steady building of something real, because things built slowly tend to last longer than things rushed carelessly toward an ending neither of us actually wants yet. There's still more inside me, more thoughts, more feelings, more of this story waiting to unfold the deeper I let myself go into it. But I want to let this part settle first, let it exist fully before adding anything more onto it, because I don't want to rush through any part of what I'm feeling for you, not even in the way I choose to express it. I think people confuse the two a lot. Excitement is loud. It's the rush you feel at the beginning of something new, the nervous energy, the anticipation. But certainty is quiet, it's steady. It doesn't need noise to prove itself. And what I feel for you has moved past just the loud excitement of something new into something quieter, something steadier, something that doesn't need constant intensity to feel real. It just is. Consistently, calmly, undeniably. I think about how rare it is to find someone who makes both the loud moments and the quiet moments feel meaningful. Some people are only exciting during the high points, during the exciting conversations, during the moments designed to impress. But you feel meaningful even in the quiet, even in the mundane, even in moments that wouldn't stand out if I were experiencing them with anyone else. That's how I know this is different. It's not about the highlight reel. It's about how right even the ordinary moments feel when I imagine sharing them with you. I want to talk about vulnerability again, because I don't think I could ever talk about it too much when it comes to you. Vulnerability isn't just about sharing sad things or difficult emotions. It's about sharing your real thoughts, even the uncertain ones, even the ones that don't come with a neat conclusion. I want to be vulnerable with you about the parts of myself still figuring things out, not just the parts that already feel resolved and confident. I want you to see the process, not just the outcome. I think about how much easier it is to show someone your strengths than your uncertainties, because strengths feel safe to share. They don't risk judgment the way uncertainty does. But real intimacy isn't built on strength alone. It's built on the willingness to be seen fully, including the parts that are still unfinished, still growing, still figuring things out one day at a time. And I want that kind of intimacy with you, the kind that doesn't require either of us to have it all figured out before we're willing to be honest about where we actually are. I keep thinking about the concept of choosing someone daily, not just once, in some grand initial decision, but repeatedly, consistently, through actions rather than just words. I think that's what separates temporary feelings from lasting ones. Anyone can feel something intensely in a single moment, but choosing someone daily, even on the days when feelings naturally fluctuate, even on the days when life makes things harder, that's what actually builds something lasting. I want to be someone who chooses you daily, not because obligation demands it, but because every day I learn something new about you that makes me want to choose you even more than the day before. I want the choosing to deepen over time instead of fading into routine, into something automatic rather than intentional. I think about the specific fear that sometimes exists in new relationships. The fear that intensity fades once things become familiar, once the newness wears off, once daily life replaces the excitement of getting to know someone. And I understand that fear, because I've seen it happen to other people, watched excitement turn into indifference over time. But I don't believe that has to be inevitable. I believe intensity can transform into something deeper instead of disappearing altogether, something less loud but more permanent, something that doesn't need constant excitement to remain meaningful. I want our story to be one where familiarity deepens connection instead of dulling it. I want the more we learn about each other to become the reason we fall deeper instead of the reason excitement fades. I want to still feel something when I see you years from now, not the same nervous excitement of the beginning, but something steadier, something that feels like home instead of chase. I think about home a lot when I think about you, because that's ultimately what I want us to build, not just a relationship, but a home, emotionally, a place where both of us feel safe enough to fully exist, without fear, without performance, without needing to protect ourselves from each other. Home isn't about perfection, it's about safety. It's about knowing that no matter what happens outside, there's a place, a person, waiting to receive you exactly as you are. I want to be that home for you, not a temporary shelter but a permanent one. Something steady enough to withstand storms instead of collapsing the first time things get difficult. I think about the storms every relationship eventually faces, misunderstandings, external stress, moments where patience runs thin. And I want to build something strong enough to withstand those storms, instead of something fragile enough to be destroyed by the first sign of difficulty. I keep thinking about the softness I mentioned before, your softness, and how much I want to protect it through every storm we might face. Because I think it would be easy, in difficult moments, to accidentally harden someone who spent their whole life staying soft, despite everything. And I don't want to be someone who contributes to that hardening. I want to be someone who protects your softness even during our hardest moments. Someone who remembers, even in frustration, that gentleness matters more than winning an argument. I think about the kind of communication I want us to build, one rooted in honesty rather than assumption, one where we ask instead of guess, where we clarify instead of resent silently. I don't want us to become people who let things build up unspoken until resentment takes root. I want us to address things early, gently, honestly, before misunderstandings have the chance to grow into something bigger than they needed to be. I want you to know that I don't expect perfection from either of us. I expect effort. I expect honesty. I expect a willingness to keep choosing each other, even when things aren't easy. Perfection isn't sustainable, but effort is. And I'd rather build something with someone who's willing to try repeatedly, than something with someone who only shows up when things are effortless. I think about the quiet joy of simply existing alongside someone who understands you, without needing constant validation, without needing performance. Just simple, steady companionship. I imagine quiet nights where we don't need grand gestures to feel connected. Just presence, just closeness, just the comfort of knowing someone chose to be exactly where they are, beside you, on purpose. I keep thinking about gratitude, about how grateful I already feel for a future I haven't even fully lived yet, simply because the possibility of it existing with you in it already feels like more than I ever expected to find. Gratitude like that doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from recognizing something valuable before it's even fully unfolded, recognizing potential worth protecting, worth nurturing, worth choosing carefully rather than carelessly. I want you to feel that same gratitude eventually, not because I need it from you, but because I hope what we build together gives you a reason to feel it too, a reason to look at your own life and think, I'm grateful this exists, I'm grateful I didn't give up before finding this. I'm grateful I stayed soft enough to receive something real when it finally arrived. There's still more building inside me, more thoughts stacking gently on top of each other, more of this feeling waiting to be expressed the deeper I allow myself to go into it. But I want to pause here again, let this settle, let you feel the weight of everything shared so far, before any more words come pouring out from a heart that clearly has so much more left to say.